As trade discussions begin to heat up, let's do some mock trades involving Stars forward Mason Marchment. Also, a look at both sides of the argument for a Jason Robertson move and more.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Let's do some mock trades on today's episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. But instead of Jason Robertson today, which we'll get to in a bit, let's do it with Stars forward Mason Marchment, because there are multiple reports that the Stars would rather trade Mason Marchment over Jason Robertson, which I don't think comes as much of a surprise to Stars fans everywhere. But what could that look like? What could the Stars get in return for Mason Marchment? And who are the teams out there that the Stars could maybe shop him to and eventually deal him to for some extra cap space? Since that's what we're looking for right now as Stars fans. Can Dallas gain some cap space? Because they could trade Jason Robertson if they feel like they don't have enough room in order to keep him for next year. So lots and lots of stuff to discuss on today's episode. We'll also touch on the Norris finalist numbers. Thomas Harley finished pretty high. I'll share those with you a bit later on. But let's hop in to a potential trade with Mason Marchment. And this comes from the fourthperiod.com. Multiple sources say that the Stars would rather move Marchment over Robertson. Not much of a surprise there, of course. And they may also be dangling defenseman Matt Dumba. That would be a great contract. The Stars could get off their books as well if they're able to move off Dumba, who is scheduled to make $3.75 million next season. But that one may be a bit harder. Now, Mason Marchment in particular is a guy at 29 years of age. Of course, he has some size. We all know the physicality he can play with, but he took a lot of penalties this last season, especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and his production just really never matched what he was able to do in the regular season. 47 points in 62 games. He would have had a career high in goals and points if he stayed healthy throughout the year. And y'all know I'm a big fan of Mason Marchment, but if you're able to move mush to gather some cap space to hold on to Jason Robertson, I am all for it. So there are a couple of teams I wanted to take a look at as potential suitors for Mason Marchment. And the first team is the Los Angeles Kings. And I came at this with a view of maybe the Stars would like to pick up some draft capital. The Stars, of course, do not have a ton of that currently. They are without a first-round pick next year, without a second-round pick this year. Not next year, this year, but they're also without their first-round pick in 2026 as well. The Kings wouldn't give you a ton of help there. They do have their second-round pick in 2026. They do not have a second-round pick this year, but they do have a first-round pick for the next 3 years. However, I don't think the Kings would give up a first-round pick for Mason Marchment. I could be wrong. Everybody has a price, but I do not see that being the case. But the Kings do have some interesting talent up front I think the Stars would be interested in. And number one would be Tanner Jeannot. He's a bit younger than Mason Marchment, not by a lot. He doesn't give you the productivity in terms of points that Marchment can. But Jeannot did have a season where he had 41 points in 81 games. He hasn't lived up to that season he put together in Nashville back in 21-22, but he's a hard, heavy player, and he's physical and could fill in on that bottom six, which I think would give Dallas some identity on that bottom six that they desperately need. He's 6'2", 220 pounds, plays a really heavy game, and we see that a lot when the Stars play LA recently or whenever they play Jeannot. I feel like he's a guy that really stands out. He's really good below the dots. He plays a heavy, strong, physical game, and the Stars are looking for some of that beef on their depth. And I think Jeannot would be an interesting replacement sort of for a Mason Marchment. Again, you may not get the offensive upside that Marchment can give you, but Jeannot could come at a cheaper price tag and just be as impactful as Mason Marchment was the last few seasons. You also have to factor in it is a modified no trade clause for Mason Marchment, so he'll have some say in where he wants to go. He has a 10-team no trade list, but Jeannot is a unrestricted free agent this season as well, so you would have to sign him, but you could sign him for a couple of years of control and cheaper, I would suppose, than Mason Marchment, and he could slide in on that fourth line, maybe your third line as a winger. He can play left or right, and I think give you a little bit of snarl up front for Dallas. And I talked about this quite a bit last season. Dallas just needs a little bit different styles, a little different archetype on their bottom six. We see a lot of the Stankovens, right? I know he's gone now, but the Maverick Borks, the Sam Steels. We see a lot of those similar type of guys. They're speedy. They work hard. They buzz around. They're quick, agile. Can they add some size and some grit in that bottom six? I think Jeannot would hit that. Now, if you're looking for a guy with a little more offensive pop, he's a bit cheaper at $4.2 million, so you wouldn't be getting much more cap space in this, but let's just say you're looking for a replacement. Trevor Moore, I'd be intrigued about. I've always liked his game. I don't apologize for that. Puckpedia is just blaring ad music while I was scrolling the Los Angeles Kings page, but we'll pick up where we left off. Trevor Moore is a player I would be intrigued about if the Stars would deal off Mason Marchment. However, that doesn't really solve the issue and the reason why Dallas is shopping Mason Marchment, and that is to increase their cap space. And that leads me to the next team, which I think could help you do that. Also, you could get a player in return, and that is the Philadelphia Flyers. There are some reports that they are looking to add some size up front. I think Mason Marchment would fit that. I think Marchment would just fit in Philadelphia as well. Rick Tocchet would probably really like Mason Marchment as a player, but I say this just because Philadelphia has a lot of draft capital, especially in the first two rounds of this year's draft. 7 total picks in the first 2 rounds, 3 first-round picks, and 4 second-round picks. We all know that the Stars could use a couple of picks. They do not have their first or second-round picks in 2025. So potentially the Stars could maybe get a pick thrown in there along with potentially a player like Ryan Poehling is a player I would look at, a really strong two-way center iceman. I do have a bias. I went to school when Ryan Poehling was playing at St. Cloud State and really loved his game. And he's cheap at $1.9 million. He could be a nice third-line center on the bottom six. He had career highs in points this past season, 31 points in 68 games. Again, he's strong defensively. He would give Dallas some speed too and some size, which Dallas is desperately looking for. I think Ryan Poehling would be a really nice addition to the bottom six in Dallas, and you get to pair him with his old buddy Jake Ottinger. We know about that. Every time they play, they bring it up 100,000 times that Otter and Ryan Poehling are good buddies, both Lakeville natives. So I think that could work as well. And you could get some, you could gain some cap space even if you picked up a guy like Ryan Poehling at a cheap price. So I think Philadelphia is a really intriguing team. Maybe you could pick up some draft capital or possibly a guy like Rasmus Ristolainen if you wanted to. That's a defenseman. A lot of Stars fans were looking for Dallas to pick up at the deadline. Of course, that did not come to fruition, but maybe Ristolainen is a potential candidate to get in return. That wouldn't necessarily help out your cap space situation, but it would give you a player that you could potentially slot in your top 4 on the blue line, which Dallas also desperately needs to try to retool. Maybe you could throw in Dumba as a sweetener in return to Philadelphia, since they're looking to try to get rid of that contract as well. So a lot of intriguing stuff involving Mason Marchment. I think the Stars could do a lot more. I think there's a lot of variety. You could try to shop him, maybe get some draft capital if you want. Plus, you would pick up some of that cap space. Or you could see if you get a young or maybe a bigger, stronger, more physical presence on the bottom six in return for him, like a Tanner Jeannot, and he would be a bit cheaper. So I think there's a lot of interesting options involving Mason Marchment. As I mentioned, there are a lot of reports that Stars would rather move him over Robo, which isn't a huge surprise. And if you're gonna re-sign Jamie Benn and Matt Duchene, that was also some news that came out the other day. Duchene is expected to re-sign in Dallas. Well, then you're going to have to really create some room if the Stars want to go that route. Now, let's go back to the Robo trade for a moment. Let's just look at both sides of the argument for a Jason Robertson move. Why it could be good, why it would be a mistake. We'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. And Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids. I picked up a bag the other day at the grocery store, and my goodness, pistachios are delicious. They pack that protein punch. Also, it's a nutritious snack in the afternoon, so you don't have to jump to something sugary. That's why Wonderful Pistachios is a great snack. It's the grab and go ease. And when you're running around in between businesses, in between meetings, right, dropping the kids off, sometimes you just need a quick snack to hold you over until dinner. Wonderful Pistachios does the job. Get snacking, get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. So yesterday we looked at potential trade destinations for Jason Robertson, and I have given a few of my thoughts on this topic before, but I really wanted to sort of do an overall encompassing segment about the good and the bad that could come with a Jason Robertson move. Now, let's start with why it would be a mistake, and many Stars fans, I think, would agree with this. Jason Robertson, whatever you think of him, he is a top 10 left winger in the NHL. 30 plus goals the last couple of seasons. His ceiling is 109 points, and really his floor, from what we've seen, is about 79 to 80 points. So about a point per game. And he wasn't always fully healthy or fully in rhythm last season, and he still put up 80 points. You would be losing an elite goal scorer from your lineup if you got rid of Jason Robertson. And those players are hard to replace. It's not impossible, and maybe you could get a potential player that is somewhat in the same category as Jason Robertson in return, but that is difficult to do. Also, Robertson is a fan favorite in a lot of ways as well. He was taken 39th overall in the second round. You developed him. You took a player that a lot of people did not like or written off because of his skating ability and whatnot, and you developed him and you turned him in to an elite scorer in the NHL. And those are hard to come by. That would be a mistake to let go of someone like Jason Robertson, and he's a part of your core. He is the core for the next 10 or so years. I think the Stars would get a lot of backlash for getting rid of a player like Jason Robertson. Also, he has been a solid fit with Rope Hintz for a long time. I know Mikko Rantanen changes some of that, but Robertson is a guy that can help your power play as well. He's strong on the power play. He is a very, very good defensive forward. We talked about that a lot over the last few seasons, how underrated he is in that aspect. He gives you a willing player on the back end, or at least in his own zone. And those players are hard to find. And you did the dirty work to go find a player like Robertson. And if you got rid of him, those are going to be hard to replace. And it could be a potential giant step back. And Jim Nill mentioned that in his press conference. They have to be really careful. They want to take a giant step back. Now, why it could be good in a lot of ways. And some of this has to do with Mikko Rantanen as well. Well, you find a replacement that, let's face it, Mikko Rantanen is even a little step above Jason Robertson in his career. He can play alongside Rope Hintz, so you don't have to worry about maybe missing a winger alongside Rope. Rantanen, the Finnish connection, it just all fits. Also, because you're paying Mikko Rantanen $12 million, if you're unable to re-sign Jason Robertson and you elect to move him, well, that's going to give you a bit more leeway, and it's going to give you some more cap space in the next few seasons to re-sign a guy like Thomas Harley, who's going to want a nice payday. I know Wyatt Johnson's a bit down the line, but he'll have to be extended, you would think, if the Stars want to move on him. Also, you have to take into account it could give you an opportunity to re-sign some other guys like at free agency. That's why it could be a good move. Like, look at Aaron Ekblad. He could be out there. There's going to be some defensemen in the summer that the Stars could possibly use that money towards if they go through with this trade. I think that's why it would be a good decision as well, because, well, you kind of got a player to replace Robo in some ways, like Mikko Rantanen, and maybe the Stars want to build around Mikko Rantanen moving forward, Miro and Harley instead of Jason Robertson, because let's face it, Jason Robertson hasn't had a ton of postseason success. I'll defend him and say, like, it's not as bad as it looks, but we all know he leaves a lot to be desired. His game isn't necessarily built to be just like a postseason wrecker or a dominating postseason. I know that's coming off a really, really strong Western Conference final again, but he hasn't done that for stretches. Like, look at what Mikko did. I know Mikko went quiet too, but he scored 6 goals in back-to-back games and is well over a point per game in his career. So it would give you some more leeway to go add another defenseman, which you desperately need help with. If it's one thing we can agree on, the Stars are pretty strong up front. And if they want to re-sign a Granlund, they want to re-sign a Duchesne and Benback, well, you have some pieces there to work with. And with maybe getting some players in return for Robertson, and you can pick up some cap space in return, then you can do some more things and really fill out this roster. So I think that would be an argument of why it is good. I think you can look at it in a lot of different ways, a lot of different angles. Again, I'm not for trading Jason Robertson. I think it would be nice to have him next season, and maybe if it doesn't work out later in the year, you can look at a potential move. But I would like to see what the Stars can do in terms of Marchment, in terms of Dumba, Lyubushkin, finding ways to increase their cap space through that way. And I guess that would be a reason why I would say it would be a mistake, because there are other ways Stars can find some cap space, and they can keep Jason Robertson. They can keep Thomas Harley, and they can have Mikko Rantanen, right? They can have a giant party together and be a really, really strong team. So there we go. Just wanted to do a more all-encompassing look of both sides of the argument for Jason Robertson here on today's episode of Locked On Stars. Man, those rumors just continue to heat up, and I'm really, really fascinated to see what happens in the next month. I would think if the Stars do move off Robertson, it would have to be before the draft. I don't think that's rocket science or a really insightful take, but they would probably want to do that. So then they have a clear eye of what they're doing, and they need to find a head coach too. It's another thing the Stars still have to find out for next season. Alrighty, enough of the trade discussions for a moment. Let's take a break from that. The Norris finalists, the Norris voting list came out, whatever you want to call it, the full voting table. Where did Thomas Harley finish? I'll let you know in just a moment. Well, we all know that Thomas Harley had a fantastic season in Dallas. 50 points and 16 goals in 78 games, both career highs in those categories as he took over the number one defenseman spot for Dallas once Miro Heiskanen went down and missed the last 3 months of the season. And the full voting table came out for the Norris Trophy. Defender Cale Makar, of course, for the Avs, 176 first place votes. It wasn't very close. Zach Rowinski was second with 132 second place votes. He had 13 first place votes. But you keep going down the list and look at that. Thomas Harley finished in seventh for the Dallas Stars. Just a phenomenal finish for Thomas Harley. And who knows where he would have maybe placed if he played the entire season as a number one defenseman here in Dallas. But really phenomenal stuff from Harley. He got 1 second place vote, 1 third place vote, 7 fourth place votes, and 27 fifth place votes. He tied with number of points with Jacob Slavin, which is a bit of a disaster that Slavin finished eighth. We all know how strong of a defenseman he is, but that's for another day. We'll talk about that so much. We get it. The Norris is more of an offensive award in a lot of ways. But Makar, Rowinski, Hughes, Morrissey, Hedman, Dahlin, then yes, Thomas Harley finished seventh above Evan Bouchard, above Adam Fox, above Gustav Forsling. So there's some good names on there. And the fact that Harley is getting his due, I think that's rather cool and interesting to see that he finished seventh. So some really remarkable stuff there from Thomas Harley. And there are some more full voting tables that are coming out recently. Former star now, Logan Stankoven, he finished in the top 10 in the Calder Trophy. He finished seventh, so congratulations to him. I know we were banging on the table before the year started for him to win the Calder here in Dallas, but man, he just struggled to put the puck in the back of the net. Man, he had so many looks and just could not finish enough. Otherwise, he may have finished a bit higher up, but now he's in Carolina. So there you go. There was the voting results for the 2024-25 Norris Trophy. And now think about it for next season. Like the Stars could realistically have, let's say, 2 defensemen in the top 8 finish in the Norris possibly. Maybe that's not possible just potentially because Miro or Harley, whatever situation the Stars are going to be in, well, if they play together, maybe they play separately. Who's going to get those number one minutes? Who's going to be the number one power play quarterback? Like that's going to factor in. That's going to be a real curious dilemma that we can get to as we get closer to the season as well. So how is that going to work? And maybe how does that fit into them both potentially being number one defenseman next year? Where could they finish within the Norris Trophy voting next season? I know Miro doesn't get a lot of love for that. He hasn't finished within the top 5 ever, but I think that would be a curious proposition of how maybe Harley and Miro could finish within the top 10 of Norris Trophy voting. I think that could be a fascinating conversation we have in the middle of next season. I wonder if that's ever happened. I'm sure it's happened before. I think Makar and Taze a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken, may have finished pretty high together as a pair of defensemen on the same team. But just seeing that Harley got a lot of love and Miro has sort of established himself. If they both stay healthy next year and they both put together pretty good seasons, and let's see Harley and Miro, like I think they both could, have anywhere to 50 to 70 points. I think that would be rather cool to see how that plays out for next season. Just to do some homework, to do some housekeeping before we get out of here. I did mention this, but Duchesne is expected or probably going to re-sign in Dallas. That was something we heard the other day. Alexis Lafreniere has come up in several trade conversations this week. He was a guy that I mentioned as a possible return for Jason Robertson to the New York Rangers. So that's rather interesting there as well. He has been brought up. Robertson trade rumors. First RFA negotiation with Robertson was tricky. There is fear about his arbitration case next summer. So yeah, if it's going to be tricky, and this, I guess, sort of kind of puts a bow on my why it would be maybe a decent move for Dallas if they fear, like, if like they may be nowhere near the same number right now for Jason Robertson. And a lot of that has because you went out and got Mikko Rantanen, and they could be like, hey, like we have a player that we've committed to paying $12 million, and we can't fit you into those plans unless you come in at this number. So yeah, there is some rather scary news, I guess, if you're on the camp of not wanting to deal off Robo. So we'll of course have plenty of more time to get into that as the weeks and days go on here on Locked On Stars. But I want to thank you for joining us on this Thursday edition of Locked On Stars. We'll be back tomorrow to finish out your weekend. Going to be a fun weekend in the DFW Metroplex, I believe. Hopefully the weather starts to turn a bit better. A lot of rain here recently. A lot of rain the last couple of months. Not that that's a bad thing, but hopefully we get the sun back out here over the weekend, and we can enjoy the pretty weather, and hopefully it's not too hot, since we've certainly entered that state of the summer. Anyway, Stars fans, thank you as always. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Never miss an episode of Locked On Stars, and we'll see you on a Friday. So long, Stars fans.